For those of you who are logged in already, I'm just going to give it another minute or two to get the rest of the folks into the webinar, and then we'll get started. All right, well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Trevor Wally. I'm the program coordinator with AgSafeBC. Welcome to today's Lunch and Learn Mental Awareness in Agriculture. The topic is farming challenges. Before we get started, I just want to let everyone know this session is being recorded and will be available to
All right, folks, I'm not sure if anybody can hear me. And I know it's being recorded, but I'm not hearing Trevor. I'm not hearing anyone else. And so, Trevor, can you type into the chat to see if you can still hear me? If you can, Trevor, I will continue and we'll have to work through the chat. Okay, Trevor, I hear you back, I think.
So Trevor's internet just died. Our apologies for that. Technical difficulties. Yes, the webinar is set up to be recorded. We do plan to continue to make sure everyone remains anonymous throughout the chat. If you have questions throughout the presentation, please feel free to use the Q&A section, and we will make sure that throughout the presentation, the questions are asked anonymously. So yes, the topic for today is, if you'll excuse my fluster, as this was not part of my plan, is farming issues and farming just challenges in general. Martin is a registered counselor and sorry, I'm really just, well, it's a good thing this is a mental wellness seminar, because I'm not the best speaker, and so this is got me a little bit flustered. So Martin is a registered counselor and is prepared to talk to you today about farm challenges.
All right. Hi, folks. And Rachel, I'm hoping everybody can see me, because I'm hoping I'm on. And hey, Trevor, you're back. I see that. Are you back? Not sure if he's back. I can see him, but I can't hear him. Anyways, so let's run with it. Trevor, interrupt me if it works for you.
Good morning, Martin. Sorry, my home internet had a power surge and then a failure of epic proportions. I'm so sorry about that. Not sure how far you got into it. I can just start again if you'd like, or if you're ready to go, we can go.
Yeah, Rachel just did part of the intro, and so you can pick that up. And she just mentioned that it was a live recorded. So
you bet. Maybe I'll just add the quick note about privacy. Cameras and microphones have been disabled for the session. You're welcome to send in questions or comments, but to maintain that privacy, please use the Q&A box, not the chat function, and we'll be able to maintain your privacy and get Martin to get your questions. So,
all right, so let's go. Well, isn't that a great way to start? And Trevor, that's actually why I'm in my day job office, not in my home office, because my internet sucks at home, so not reliable. So here we are. All right, folks. There's a number of you that that are there, and I'm just going to share my screen to get started. So just give me a second. I'm hoping you can all see that Lunch and Learn, Mental Wellness and Agriculture. And I'm hoping that you can all see that farming challenges. I just got a couple of slides today, so really focus on me. And before I'll get to that, I'm just going to come back to this screen. So just why am I doing this today on farming challenges? Well, one of the reasons is that dairy farming here in Agassiz was my first career, and we growing up in a family farm, looking at family dynamics, being the youngest of 6 boys, I wanted to be a dairy farmer and take over the family farm. Things changed, which resulted in 1980, my wife and I purchasing our own dairy farm. Some of you may remember, some of you may not. Early 80s, we got hit with a bit of a recession, and I got caught up in having just purchased cows, quota, built new barns, bunkers, and a small farm, got caught in that 20+% interest. So in looking back, there's a number of pieces that I've learned along the way. We did farm for 10 years, and then as part of my bio says, did go after we sold, spent 2 years in Jamaica, and then came back and started this career in the counseling program in the human services field. Looking back, as farming challenges, there's a couple of things that I want to share, in particular with the journey that many of you have gone through, some directly, some indirectly, with regards to the flooding that this comes out of. And so just acknowledging the dedication and commitment and appreciation of getting our hands dirty in the soil, and walking alongside the animals that we care so much about. And so that's part of my essence, and still being quite connected to the land, even though I'm not currently bona fide farmer, but live on some of the home acreage that I grew up on. So looking back, like I mentioned, there's a couple of things that I want to talk about with regards to farming challenges. And so in that, I'm going to go back to my screen share and just sort of walk through. I've got a couple of slides, but one of the pieces that I wanted to move to is first of all, looking at an Indigenous medicine wheel. And so first, with that, wanting just to acknowledge that I am calling in from the unceded ancestral territory of the Stalo people, in particular, the Halkomelem speaking people of Stahala, Seabird Island, and Shiam, because I'm calling from Agassiz. And so in that, looking at this medicine wheel as a concept for today's conversation, acknowledging that I'm not Indigenous, and am not able to fully appreciate or teach about this. And so you'll see the qualifier on the slide. The important piece, though, is that in farming challenges, the strength that farming families have is they know how to, like my dad used to say, put a hand to the plow. And so if I use that analogy of what my father shared with me as a new immigrant to Canada, is, Martin, you got to keep your hand to the plow. And so when you keep your hand to the plow, that's all about keeping your sights forward, watching the toiled land, but keeping that straight line. And that is a strength that farming families have, that you have as farming families. And when that Western European hard work ethic was pushing me through those early years, and with the farmers that I'm currently connected to in my private practice as a family therapist, is as that hard work ethic keeps us going. It was the hard work ethic and the love of animals and the love of the land that kept you going through the Sumas floods, that kept you going through hard times. That at a time where that hard, committed work ethic to the love of animals and the love of the land moves you through, there is a part that sometimes is not addressed, and that is with regards to the medicine wheel. That's the spiritual part, the mental part, the emotional part, and the physical part. And so in that, I just wanted to sort of look at this as a framework of this medicine wheel. So in that idea, when the physical hard work ethic pushes you through, how are you dealing with the emotional part? How are you dealing with the mental part? What keeps you going? How are you connected to however you would define your spiritual part? Where do you get that sense of strength with regards to your connection, and however you make sense out of that spiritual part? If it's a faith walk, if it's a connecting to the land, if it's a connecting to nature. So however that is. So I'm going to just walk through these 4 components just for a moment with regards to applying them in balance to farming challenges. So one of the things is I always looked for, when I did my soil sampling, when I did my feed sampling, when I looked at those things, I always wanted to make sure that I was providing the best balance for my animals, for my crops, to be to be able to attain the very highest, not only productivity, but the highest nutritional value, and also the efficacy, or the like if I think of the chickens, how do we help them grow to the best potential that they can grow, to feed our population, feed our country and our people. And so in that, with regards to the spiritual part, is where do you find that additional meaning and purpose? Where do you find that essence of connectedness to what's transcendent? A story that I remember is I was 7 years old when I first started to drive tractor independently from my father on the field. And I'll never forget the story when he said, we were just pulling on, and I had an old International H, and with a cultivator in the back, small one back then, and in the early 60s. And as we pulled the cultivator in, he said, "Stop for a sec." He said, "Get off the tractor," left the tractor running, "Get off the tractor, take some of that soil, that freshly turned plowed soil," because the plow was just in front of me with my older brother. And he says, "Take a smell of that soil." To me, the smell of that soil was a spiritual moment. It was a connectedness and appreciation of what that soil is giving us, because I know you as farmers and farming families are wanting the very, very best for that soil. We don't take advantage of our soil, we look after our soil. So for some people, that's a spiritual moment. For my father, it was a connectedness in his faith journey and his with as the Indigenous people call the Creator. And so for my father, it was there was a prayer that was offered in appreciation for the soil. So however you find your spiritual strength, your spiritual fulfillment, where's your charging station? You know, sometimes we park small stuff, like you might park your ride-on lawnmower in the back and you put a little trickle charger over the winter because you want it to start nicely. Or some of you that ride street bikes, you might have that street bike parked, but you have your trickle charger on. Where's your trickle charger for your spiritual part? And so in that, then, is it's important, looking back, that the hard work ethic pushes us through, which is part of the physical, but where are you keeping in balance, in harmony, the spiritual piece? Then we go to the emotional piece. So there's been a couple of webinars already on dealing with stress and fatigue and some of those sort of things. And I don't want to sort of speak into those, but this concept is where are you finding your strength emotionally? And the emotional strength is it comes from the collectiveness. So with some of the families that I am connected to in the Mass Flats post-flood, the ability to come together as community, the ability to come together as neighbors. I've experienced a little bit of that here in Agassiz, but not the extent for some of you. So that coming together, there's an emotional connection in that. And so leaning on each other and supporting one another is an emotional piece. Other things, where do you find emotional joy in the midst of this overwhelming financial devastation and the overwhelming loss of animals and crops? And so really acknowledging the drain of that. And some of you that are watching, knowing the loss of the animals, cows, chickens, hogs, the pieces of loss are significant. So where's that being replenished emotionally? And so then as we move forward in this conversation, by the way, if there's any questions, just send them to Trevor. I welcome interruptions. And so I'll go back and just feel free to interrupt anytime. So with that though is then also, you know, if I think of the mental piece, is where do you have a place, and look for a place to be able to talk about some of this stuff. So as a marriage and family therapist, is some people come to me. If there's other therapists that are a part of this, where do you have a place to talk some of this through? There's the part of talking with family members. Some of your family members may understand, some of them may not. Some of them are so caught in it that we need to find mental recharging in other ways. And so how is your thinking going? How are you able to see the potential of working towards rebuilding? Because that's what all of you are doing. Maybe not all of you, but many of you, sorry about that. And how is that rebuilding going? The other piece in this is the dynamics of family systems. And so when I think of my father's decision to sell our family farm, that was a family decision based on my father with regards to having, I had 5 older brothers. And so what do we do with that? And when my dad was first diagnosed with cancer. And so in that, now he lived for many years, but there are these family dynamics that are often happening in the farming family communities and the family farms. And so where do you find a place in those family dynamics and in this devastation time of now coming together and rebuilding? And so that mental piece. And so giving that some thought about how to help you charge, sort of, where's the booster charge? Where's the trickle charger for helping you think more clearly? And so sometimes that's done with journaling. Sometimes that's done with meditation. Sometimes that's done with counseling. Sometimes that's done with talking to friends and family. Sometimes the mental piece is even walking the land that has been replowed and as part of the thought process of we are reclaiming what the floods have stolen. We are rebuilding what the floods have washed away. That's the kind of mental thought process to say, how am I going to start thinking in a positive direction moving forward, combined with the incredible work ethic and the incredible commitment that farming families have. And so in that, those are the kinds of pieces mentally to help you in your physical pushing through. And then also there's the times in the physicalness where we lose sleep, we worry, which is the emotional part, but our eating habits are off. We're not able to sleep so well. We're struggling with some of those pieces. And so in that, how are you addressing some of those healthy physical pieces? It's not all work. How are you taking time to hold on to each other as family members, those that are close, as neighbors? Where do you find and where can you provide an encouraging word, which is emotional, but also mental, to a neighbor, to a family member, in those moments where they're struggling? Where can you come alongside and offer a prayer, which is a spiritual piece for that person? Many of you have really banded together in helping each other, and the collective work of helping each other clean up and move forward in the recovery process. And so you are in this stage of recovery, and recognizing that and acknowledging that. So this is just a piece to give to you to sort of say, here's a couple of ways to think of how am I going to address the farming challenges that I'm in today? What are the financial decisions that need to be made? And how to keep a balanced strength perspective in addressing some of those financial challenges that you're facing that I can't even conceptualize. All I can conceptualize is the bank manager dropping by my door and saying, I don't know if I need the keys today, but I'll give you another week. Those were my financial challenges back in the early 80s. You have different financial challenges today, much bigger scale than my small little scale in the early 80s. But this is a piece that I didn't have the language for, but I discovered that helped me through, in particular, looking back. So then I'm going to take you to the next piece. This is another metaphor that is another way of understanding each other in these challenging times of rebuilding. So Virginia Satir was a therapist in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and so if we think of a sort of an iceberg, they say that 1/8 is above the surface and 7/8 is below the surface. So in meeting these challenges that you're in, is what is the personal iceberg, as a metaphor, that each one of you are experiencing? So you and a partner, or one of your children, or one of your parents or aunts or uncles, however your family farm is connected, or however you're connected to farming challenges. So if we think of the behaviors as sort of above the surface, that's what we see, that's what we hear, that's the storyline. And then internally, this is the 7/8 of the iceberg that's below the surface. Internally, there are these pieces that each one of you individually are processing, are pushing away because you can't deal with it, because you got to rebuild, you got to get the crops in, you got to get your cattle back, you got to clean your chicken barns, whatever it is. We got to replant our vegetables, whatever it is. However we are doing those behaviors, internally there's this emotional part. And so the emotional part are the feelings. And it may be a whole range of emotions. And recognizing that in that emotional space, and again, similar to the medicine, each one of us will have our own individual experience with our emotions or our feelings. And then we have feelings about feelings. And so how do we make sense out of that? I think of one of the farmers that I recently talked to, not as part of my private practice, but as an old colleague. He said, Martin, he said, I was taught in my family system to not have any fear, but I'm scared. This was in the midst of the flooding. And he says, I have no place to put scared because I'm expected to keep it all together. And so in that, what do we do with these feelings about feelings? And so where do we have conversations about that? And where do we honor and acknowledge those and say, yes, that is what I'm experiencing. And then internally, each one of us has these perceptions, these beliefs, these assumptions, mindsets, our thoughts. How do we make sense out of what's happening? How do we put reason to the unreasonable, or how do we think through these things? And that in the medicine wheel is our mental piece. How do we bring meaning to that? And so recognizing that each person finds different ways, very individually, of how they put meaning to these pieces, and having an understanding of each other's individual experiences within your families, within your system, those that you agree or disagree with, those that have other perspectives. And so in that, just recognizing that your individual thought process with regards to an emotion, with regards to an inner experience, may be very different from your partners, from your children, from your parents, from a brother, sister, aunt, uncle, father, mother, however your system is connected on your family farm. And then we have these individual pieces of what we expect from others. And often our expectations of others either are beneficial or are hurtful. Often they either get in the way or they help us. And so what is our expectations of ourselves? What is our expectations of others and from others? And so if I think of right now as financial remuneration, what's our expectation from government? What's our expectation from the neighbor? What's our expectation from other resources? What's the bank's expectation? What's the family's expectation? Family dynamics, where one person in the family business now says, this is time to bail and sell, and somebody else says, but I love my animals, I love my land. This is all I know, and I don't know anything else. I remember when we sold our dairy farm, I walked off the farm and I didn't know what else to do, because that's all I ever wanted to do since I was a little kid. So how do you manage some of those challenges, struggles? And what do you expect of yourselves? Then we get into what's universal. And that is where all of you have the same connected piece. We're all connected. We're all interconnected. We all have this need to be loved, accepted, appreciated, be valued, belong. And so if I think of what's recently happened, there is a collective coming together. There's a connection of coming together to help each other. And so in many stories that I've heard. And so there's a belonging and a connectedness to that, recognizing that you all have the same universal longing. You're yearning to be connected, to be appreciated, to be valued. And so in these challenging times, we respond out of our own individual feelings, perceptions, and expectations. But where we're all connected is our universal yearnings or longings to be connected. And that's an important piece. We all have that. We all share that. And then we get into the spiritual part. It's related again to the medicine wheel, but we all have a spirit, a soul, a life force, an essence of our core being. And how do we tap into that and be aware of each other's in these challenging times? And so as I think of that whole piece, is in the relationships that you have, in getting up to milk the cows or check your computers, what's the robot doing? Which one's working? Which one's not? Is the water running in the chicken barn? Where am I going to find enough plants to replant my blueberries or my raspberries, or where am I going to get enough seed to replant the sod fields? Those are all different perspectives that each one of you are struggling, and there's stuff that I don't even know that I haven't even mentioned. But in that, each person's way of coping with the challenges that you're all facing, variety of ways, individually or collectively, that remembering that in coming together, we are actually connected at our yearnings and ourselves. We are interconnected. You are connected to your neighbors. If you get along with them or not, you're still connected. And when we don't get along in family systems and between neighbors and competing demands, that's when our feelings about feelings, our perceptions and our expectations, we take them individually. So how do we face farming challenges? Coming together. That's how we face them, leaning on each other like you're doing and understanding what's happening internally. That's what I've learned in my few years of walking together with farmers, growing up in farming, in the farming community in the early 60s. So I'm 65 this year, and I remember my early years going to my neighbors, and they would say, "Oh, Martin, it's time to be a neighbor. I'm glad you're here." And so those are the relationships that I have held on to, and I still hold on to today. That in leaning on each other, there's a collective strength. So I'm hoping that this has been helpful. I look forward to questions, curiosities, and so I'm going to open it up for now for that. Trevor, you got any questions or curiosities? And I'm just going to stop sharing for a moment, and I can always go back to sharing.
Thanks, Martin. I just wanted to double check that you had shared the wheel with us, but I'm not sure if there was a second slide after that. That was the only one we'd seen.
Oh my!
So
there's
a lot of good information on there.
Okay, so how did that not work? What do you see on screen? Oh, I'll share again. Thanks for that.
It's a great day for technological issues, I tell you.
Oh, all good. Okay, so that's my thank you. Okay, and so let's go back one slide.
There we go.
Are you seeing the iceberg?
I see an iceberg now. There we go.
Okay, my apologies. So this is Virginia Satir's iceberg that I've referenced, and so if we think of what we see and we hear is the behavior, the storyline. And then as we go through our feelings about feelings, perceptions, expectations, those are very individual to each one of us. That's the internal process. And then we get to the universal yearnings in the self. So I was talking about this is the connection between each other that is universally connected. So there's a similarity. We all come from that base. How well those yearnings are met is a whole nother piece. But that's the reference of the iceberg that I was referencing. So for some reason, it didn't switch when on my screen share. Boy.
That's all good. We saw the majority of your screen and looked like the actual Word document of the wheel. So it was,
yep.
Again, lots of great information on both of those. We'll blame that on the power surge at my house as well. It's not a problem at all, Martin.
Good.
Not like we're causing stress whatsoever to the presenters, I tell you. We do try to help. You know what, Martin? We haven't had any questions come in yet from the Q&A. Again, if you have anything you are wondering about, go ahead and type that into the Q&A. We'll keep those respectfully private for you, and we can share that information. Martin, the information you had there about acknowledging the differences and yet similarities, if you will, between what are the things that cause people the stress, whether it's relationships or issues with animals or issues with land, really I think is at the heart of a lot of what we're trying to do here with these sessions with farmers. And I can't tell you how much we appreciate it, because there's absolutely that connective piece that, or a perception, if you will, that trying to seek help or talk to someone who doesn't have a connection with what farming is can create more questions than answers. So have you found that in your practice at all, the connectivity to the farming as a calling makes a big difference?
Yeah, I think one of the pieces in that is that. So my private practice is a relatively small private practice, just in the evenings, because I do something else during the day, and that's the office I'm in. But one of the things in that is that there is this essence that is often misunderstood by people that are not, if I call it, born of the land and connected to the land. And so there's something in the appreciation of how do we actually facilitate a commitment to the very best in our soil nutrition, but also in our feed nutrition. And there's something that's inbred in that. And so part of this conversation is understanding that, but then where does the hard work ethic fall short? Because often the hard work ethic or the commitment or the desire does not give room for what do we do with the emotion piece? What do we do? We don't have time for that. We got stuff to do. We got to get there. We got to get back at it. I don't have time to sit and talk about my feelings. Don't give me that stuff. So, but what do I do with them then, right? And so that's part of the challenge. And also how to be there for those that at a time they say, I need someone to talk to, who's also not in sort of not sitting in it or standing in it, that understands but can help me get a different perspective to move through.
Right.
And
not wearing the same blinders that you have because of the situation that you're in.
Yeah.
So we did have one question come in, and again, this one came in through the chat. I'll just remind everyone, if you use the Q&A box, then we can keep it ensure your privacy a little better. The question was, though, do you find farmers to be very community minded, to be supportive of each other in this capacity?
So one of the things in that, thanks for the question, is in quite amazing ways, because farmers in general understand that things need to come together for productivity, for financial viability, for efficiency, that there is a collectiveness that assists in that. And so I have found actually farmers being amazing in coming together in catastrophized situation. And I have seen that in not just here locally, but also when I was working overseas for 3 years, when there were struggles when I was overseas, the ability for farmers in particular to come together in supporting each other. And so yes, I have found farmers to be very community minded and understanding. It was just fascinating, not fascinating, that's the wrong word, but so here I am in Agassiz, and I'm quite well connected to people here in the farming community and others, and the amount of empty barns that were filled with livestock was quite amazing. And so in fact, any farming clients that I had would say, Martin, I don't have time for any sessions. I'll talk to you in 3 weeks. Got work to do, And so I thought, this is part of the farming community coming together to help each other out. I hope that answers a bit of that question.
Absolutely, and speaking sort of to the side of that, I like to describe myself in sessions like this as a town kid from a farming community, and you could always tell there was something going on with in joy, in sadness, in struggle, or in celebration. It was definitely that sense of community that was always my observation growing up in the small town that I'm from up north. So not seeing any more questions coming in. Martin, I'll throw it back to you if you want to wrap it up, and we can all get back to work on the farm.
Yeah. So we'll just wrap that up, and on the last slide, I'll submit it to you, Trevor, with regards to if there's any further questions. My email's on there, and so thanks, and I appreciate the opportunity, and really wishing all the farmers the very, very, very best, as there's a coming together, and also how do we address the internal processes that I've articulated through those two concepts.
Perfect. All right, that's great. Well, on behalf of AgSafeBC and on behalf of all those attending today, thank you very much, Martin, for your time and this great information. And my apologies for the hiccups at the start of this. Tell you what, just as I'm wrapping this up, one more note just came in. Can we please see your email address again? So if you want to pop that up on the screen, and I'll just keep chatting while that's on the screen again. I was actually just about to say, so good time for that question. If you'd like to contact Martin, there is his email address. You can email him with that information, or you can visit our website. A reminder to everyone here, if you haven't yet signed up for the remaining sessions, please do so. You can visit our website, which is agsafebc.ca, and links are right there for the mental wellness in agriculture sessions. We also do have a mental wellness page on our website with a bunch of information and links to Martin, as well as other agriculture related counselors. So lots of assistance there, as well as the regular occupational health and safety information for farmers and ranchers throughout BC. And that concludes today's session. So thank you very much for attending. Take care, stay safe, and we'll see you all next week. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Okay, bye.